cool. So, hi, I'm Louisa. I hope everyone's well this morning. Please bear with me. I'm really nervous about this, and this is not something I'm used to doing. So, if I talk too fast or waffle on, I'm very sorry. Secondly, thank you to Chris and Martina for inviting me to talk to you. It's really great to hear that people like my work, and I think especially during lockdown when you're kind of just posting it online and you're getting kind of comments, which is great, but you know, having people reach out to you I think is really helpful, and it kind of keeps you going, which is really nice. And having watched some of the previous talks online, it's really flattering to be asked when I've seen kind of what those speakers have done and achieved. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's also a shame that we're not all together at the pump rooms, because it looks like such a great event, and I'm also really gutted that I can't eat any of the snacks that I saw in the video because they look absolutely amazing. So when we're allowed to come back in, I'll definitely be coming back to watch the future talks. So as I said, I'm Louisa and I'm an illustrator. I'm currently based in Leamington Spa. And for those of you who don't know me, which is I think everyone here, I regularly post illustrations under Louisa F Illustration on Instagram. And I'll be showing you my illustrations. There's some on the screen at the moment, but I'll be showing you some more throughout the talk. And I hope you like them, or I hope you find them interesting. And I'll add the link at the end in case anyone wants to have a look at anything else I've done. My current artwork focuses on celebrating curves and diversity in female bodies, and trying to spread the messages of body positivity and body acceptance. So just to give you a bit of history about me, I was born in Paris, and when I was 5, moved to Burton-on-Trent, which was very different from Paris. Burton's about an hour from here. When I was at school, I was really into art and enjoyed anything that was creative, although I kind of started to fall a bit out of love with that when I grew older, because we were pushed to do everything in paint, make everything really realistic, and that's just not my kind of style. So I didn't really kind of find my artistic style until way after school. At 18, I studied costume design at what was the University College at Bournemouth, and I specialised in the design side of costume. And it was there that we did a few life drawing classes, which I loved doing because it was the first time I was really able to focus on lines of the body, natural folds that develop when you sit a certain way, or the shapes that flesh and muscle create in different poses. And what made these lessons really helpful was we weren't drawing a model that was standing up straight with perfect posture. We were drawing models of all shapes and sizes. And I remember really enjoying the sense of just drawing what was in front of me and focusing on real everyday bodies that we don't really see much of in TV or films or social media. So I think that's what really sparked an interest in drawing bodies in general, and just drawing bodies that we don't see really. In 2013, I moved to Warwick, and I got a job working with costumes and set at Warwick Castle, which was really hard, but also really fun, and learned a lot from that. And about 3 years ago, I started working for the Royal Shakespeare Company. So I work in the costume hire department, and we hire costumes to TV companies, to film companies, to schools, to fancy dress. So if anyone ever needs a costume, so the Royal Shakespeare Company is the place to go. Although I'm not there at the moment because I'm furloughed, obviously, with the current situation. But it's kind of ironic, you'd say, that my career has been based around clothing and costuming people, and a lot of my illustrations are all naked people. Because I'd say all my adult life, my jobs have revolved around bodies in a way, designing and making costumes to clothe them, designing costumes to portray different characters. And I think it's really pushed my creativity in a certain direction. I find drawing characters and people really fun and interesting because you can change little ways, and you can change how the personality comes across just by tilting the heads in the picture, or hunching them over, sitting them straight, or depending on what clothing you draw them in, it kind of all changes their characters and it gives you a different personality. Although, as I said, I don't really do much clothing in my illustrations. So like many people, I was furloughed in March, and I struggled with ways to keep busy in lockdown. I started off sewing scripts for the NHS, but very quickly my sewing machine just kind of cut out, so I had to find different ways of keeping busy, and I'd watched the whole of Tiger King, so I was trying to, you know, really find something else to keep me engaged. So I started drawing more regularly again and treated it more as a job, and kind of had, you know, a time frame of what I was going to achieve every day, which kind of gave myself a bit more structure, which I think was really helpful. And after I posted more and more illustrations on Instagram, more people kept asking if they could buy my prints. So I took the plunge and I set up an Etsy page where there's about 9 illustrations for sale, and hopefully this will keep growing and expanding. So again, I'll put the link to that if anyone's interested in having a look at anything that I've got for sale. Oh no, this is where everything is going to fail. 2 seconds. Let me just share my screen again. Okay, bear with me, everything's gone a bit wrong. Okay, can people see my screen again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Cool, sorry about that. So this month's theme is spectrum, and I was asked what the word spectrum meant to me. So after a lot of thinking, I came up with the word spectrum is full of energy. It lets us take an idea and stretch that to boundless possibilities, allowing for infinite exploration. And it's just about taking a point and zooming into that point and seeing what you can get from that point, and all the different possibilities that it kind of presents to you, which I think is really interesting. And when Chris contacted me, he said he liked the spectrum of bodies and different characters and personalities that he found in my illustrations, which made me really happy, because that's the theme that's always at the back of my mind when I'm creating new ideas and coming up with new drawings. Not the word spectrum exactly, but that kind of idea of variety and diversity, and the one mold doesn't fit all. But it was quite daunting because, well, I mean, this talk's quite daunting, but it's such a huge word, and what I'm showing is such a tiny chunk of what anyone can explore within it. So it's exciting but quite scary because of all the challenges kind of that it can give you. Because the different varieties and points you can explore on a spectrum is what makes life fun. It's what challenges life. It's what makes it mysterious and sad and surprising and exciting. So, you know, if you go to Nando's and the spice level you get given is a medium, that's going to be really great for a lot of people. You're going to know what you're getting, but for a lot of people it's going to be too spicy and they're not going to like it. And then for a lot of other people it's going to be really, really boring. But having that range, like Nando's, but obviously a lot more, is what makes everything more exciting. And there's new things you can try out, and there's pieces of something you can relate to, and knowing there's something always that you can challenge and you can push and you can explore. And so taking that theme into contemporary illustration, specifically with the human body, it was something that I've always found a bit of a disconnect with, because if you think about illustration, it's everywhere. It's in pictures, prints in homes, designs on t-shirts, coffee cups, tote bags, advertisements on bus stops, billboards, logos on apps, posters in waiting rooms, images on crisp packets. It's everywhere. And maybe I wasn't looking hard enough, but I was always just seeing the same kind of glamorous, mainly white, thin people. And we're not all glamorous, mainly white, thin people. When most people sit down, we have folds of fat or skin. Some of us have double chins, some of us are fat, some of us are thin, some of us are all shapes and sizes. There's different colours, there's, you know, different disabilities, abilities, sexual orientations, but I just wasn't seeing any of that being represented. Not sure why my PowerPoint is failing me every time I click, but we will try. Hang on. Oh, okay. It's just a bit slow. Here we go. So when I started drawing again, especially in the last couple of years, I really wanted to make sure I was drawing bodies that I personally related to. Bodies I wasn't seeing, and wanted to make these bodies beautiful and celebrate them, and not make them comical, but to show the beauty and the freedom that we see with the glamorous thin people that we're always seeing everywhere. So if someone like me saw my illustrations, then maybe they could relate to them a bit more. So one of my pieces I think really shows this is the piece you can see now. It's called Hugo Girls. It shows different body types all doing the same thing, and I've had really, really good feedback on it. I thought about my body and my friends' bodies, and we're all so different, but still beautiful and still valid. And I wanted to draw a range of bodies. I wanted to draw short, tall, thin, fat, toned, wobbly, tight, droopy bodies, but all doing the same thing to show it doesn't matter what your body looks like. One body type shouldn't be held to a higher standard. You should just have them on a spectrum and be able to say, oh, look at that body, look at the curves that it creates, look how beautiful that is, or look at the elegant lines of this long, tall person, or look how this body looks like my sister, or look how this person looks like the lady in the queue in front of me. I wanted to create bodies that we all know someone that has that kind of body, but it's all different, and that's fine, because that's what makes everything exciting. And I'm in no way saying that we should stop showing the perfect bodies, because some people can relate to them, but I just want to see more of a spectrum of different sizes and shapes, races, abilities, because the more we see, the more of a variety, the more that everything's normalized and we're used to seeing it, and hopefully the more we see that, the better we'll feel about ourselves. So when the next slide hopefully comes up, which could be any time now, you'll see a painting of Renoir's The Bathers. So sometimes I take inspiration from classical art, where I feel there's more of a variety of bodies in that. And I love the painting like The Bathers by Renoir, because it shows fleshy, squishy bodies. They're not toned, they're not as how we would perceive as model-like, but they're still beautiful, and they're the main focus of the paintings. But yet, they're not embarrassingly covering up, and I think there's something really beautiful with the ordinariness of the painting. And you can see kind of the inspiration I took from that with an illustration I did, just kind of showing two people relaxing, having fun, not caring about what their bodies look like. And I think especially, you know, women in general, but, you know, it happens to a lot of men as well. There's, you know, I've heard countless of my friends saying, oh, I couldn't go swimming because, you know, I don't want to wear a swimming costume, or I couldn't do this. But I really like that in the picture that I created, it's just, they don't care, they're just relaxed and they're glorious in their bodies, and I think that's really important. And for me, it's important that the bodies that I draw are seen as beautiful, but not just beautiful, but powerful as well. And I tend to lean towards drawing bigger and curvier ladies, and that's probably because that's my own body type. But I think we're always used to seeing big women as either dowdy or funny, or, you know, not the main focus. And stereotypically in film or theatre, you have the big women as mothers or maids, and their purpose is never kind of, you know, it's never the slim heroine. They never get the powerful moments. They're rarely seen as sexy. But I wanted to show through my drawings that we can be that. Anyone can be that. Whether that's through the pose they're in, the activity they're doing, or just a simple caption. So you can see here that in this picture, the beauty queen picture, she's wearing a golden crown. She's looking straight at you. Well, she doesn't have eyes, but if she did, she'd be looking straight at you. And she's unapologetic, and she's telling you that she's a beauty queen. The next picture is the Sun and the Moon Lady, which Danny did an amazing job of doing an animation of. You can see she doesn't have a flat stomach, she doesn't have a chiseled jawline, but she's standing with her head held high, she's holding the sun and the moon. And I thought that would be really powerful, just to show that the kind of power of the otherworldliness that, you know, you can portray, and you don't have to be, you know, you don't have to be this really elegant thin person to do that. Anyone with any body can have that power. So the next picture is a take on the J. Howard Miller We Can Do It poster, which people will probably be familiar with. It's the Rosie the Riveter, and she's seen as a symbol of feminism and girl power. But I've drawn her here. She's got thick thighs, she's got back folds, her arms aren't toned, but she's still powerful, she's still strong. And she's kind of showing you that we can do it, and anyone can do it. An artist who I really love is Sophie Bass. She's a London-based illustrator whose work is predominantly seen in album and music artwork. And her artwork shows a really exciting spectrum of body types, races, and sexual orientations. The bodies she draws are full of energy and life. And women are vulnerable yet powerful, and there's such a dynamic excitement that all her characters feel like, and they're celebrating themselves. And I think we should all try and take inspiration and try and do that. You can see the picture with the first picture with the multiple women kind of all dancing around. They don't care that, you know, they don't look like each other, they're all different, and they're celebrating that, and I think that's really great. Something else I'd like to see more in everyday illustration is disabilities being celebrated and normalised. It's definitely something that I'm trying to push myself to draw more of, and we don't see enough people in wheelchairs doing everyday things like meeting their friends at the park, or somebody wearing a breathing tube ordering drinks at a bar, or somebody with a prosthetic limb roller skating. But why don't we see that? It must be the same for someone who's curvy to see images of beautiful curvy people and feel that connection to them. So it must be the same for someone in, you know, a wheelchair to see someone in a wheelchair on an illustration. But you don't really see that a lot in logos or, you know, posters. I mean, I haven't anyway, I haven't really seen disabilities unless it's a doctor's waiting room. Another London-based artist who I think is really good at highlighting the beauty in disabilities is Ananya Rao Middleton. She is a post-concussion syndrome survivor and lives with multiple sclerosis, and she gives a really refreshing take on how disabilities are shown. Her illustrations are people with visible and invisible disabilities, and they're all really fun, and they've got a really carefree air to them. They're beautiful and they're strong and they're unapologetic and they're shouting to be heard. And I think it's really exciting how she shows that kind of range of all abilities and how beautiful and normal it is. So from seeing some of my illustrations, you might have noticed that I rarely draw eyes. And this is a question that I get asked a lot about. There's a couple of answers for this. I find eyes quite hard to draw, so it's kind of an easy cop-out at first. But the first thing I notice when I look at a photo or a painting is eyes straight away, and I always find that I focus on the face first and then look at the body next. Whereas I always want the main focus to be the body. So I want to take away the distraction and focusing on the part of the subject that I want everyone who's looking at my illustrations to focus on first. I also like the challenge of giving people in my illustrations a bit of character solely through their environment, the body language they're in, what they're wearing or holding. And I think it's quite difficult to do that without showing frowning or smiling or laughing, but I quite like the challenge of doing that just through their pose. So yeah, sorry it's a bit short. That's my take on illustration and how it relates to my illustrations. And I also think it's important, and why I think it's important, to show diversity through artwork. I know realistically my artwork is just a tiny portion of what can be creative, and there are a lot of illustrations and artists out there that are really pushing the norms of what we're used to seeing on a broad spectrum. So I hope that continues to be the case, and we start to see more variety and diversity in artwork and advertising and anything else that illustration is used for. So yeah, I hope you find this interesting, and let me know if you have any questions, and the next slide should be the link with information on if it ever turns up. So yeah, that's it.